Good afternoon, Jessica. How are you today?
I'm good, Mel. How are you?
Good, good. Super excited to have you today on the Women in Tech and Their Money Stories series. Just so you know, you are the first person after my 1 year anniversary.
Woo!
I know, so I'm
Yay!
really excited that you're
That's exciting.
here. For those of you who will be watching the video, Jessica Williams has a lot of wonderful stories and things to share with us today. So I'll let you go ahead and take it from here. Tell us about yourself.
Okay. Tell you about myself. Oh my gosh. Well, I do a lot of things, but one that I'm really excited about is I am really all about helping women, men, whomever start their side hustles, and really getting them the tips and resources and inspiration that they need to get started and keep it going while managing all the other aspects of their lives. So I do a weekly newsletter called Just Picks, which I'm really excited about, which curates tips from me, from other people that are essentially building their creator businesses and content businesses. And really, it's all about just providing a resource for people who want to start a side hustle. Also doing a couple of things on the day job front, but I'm not going to focus on that today.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Before we get ahead of ourselves, how would I sign up for your
sure.
newsletter?
Sure. It's on my website. It's techbizgurl.com/justpicks, which will include a link along with this recording, I will assume.
Fantastic. So I was thinking earlier today about how we met. And the closest thing I can come to is some sort of event in 1871.
That sounds about right.
Years ago. Like I mean, obviously we've been friends for a long time.
Yeah,
Does that seem right to you?
I feel like it, right? That sounds right. I don't know what event. It had to do with women in tech, obviously,
Obviously.
but
For
I
those
don't know what
people,
event it was.
right. For those people who are watching our video today, 1871 is an incubator here in Chicago, and
Mhm.
they offer a lot of free programming. There's a lot of startups that are based out of it.
Mhm.
Um, not quite sure what it's doing these days, post-pandemic, but I think they were also a big proponent of hosting the Women's International Day. They had a big event, if I remember right.
Yes, that's right. It is. Happy Women's International Women's Day. Oh my goodness.
How great
Yes.
is that we're doing this today?
I know. It's the universe telling us that we're good. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so you have been all over the world with your career and your experiences.
Yep.
I'm sure you've experienced quite a bit of events and happenings and whatever. And so I wanted to find out from you what maybe one or two successes that you're or accomplishments that you're most proud of.
Um, well, one actually is starting my newsletter that I mentioned before. I think because it was just when I started it, it was really just a thing that I wanted to do for my email list that I could do on a consistent basis. And it wouldn't take a lot of time because I do work a full-time job as well. And I started it 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago now. And it's just
Wow.
amazing how it started as this little thing I was doing on the side, but it has resulted in so many opportunities for me to speak. Because of it, I am like a go-to resource for side hustlers. It's grown to 1,500 subscribers.
Wow.
It's pretty impressive. And now I feel like in the past couple of years, newsletters have become a thing, right? Like a lot of people have newsletters now. It's the thing to do. There's content businesses all of a sudden. And it's just nice to kind of have been there in the beginning and also be a part of it now. So that's one thing. It's just like, I guess the idea is that it's something that you start, you just sometimes never know like how it will manifest itself in your future. And
Mhm.
so it's like one of the best decisions I could have made because it's helped me grow as a writer. It's helped me develop a voice and connected me to opportunities and awesome people. So it's been really great. I'm just trying to think. Another success would probably be related to how I met Mel, which is really being in the women in tech space in Chicago and having the opportunity to co-facilitate a program called Wisdom at 1871. And really just having the opportunity to help dozens of women build their tech startups, and just being a part of that story and helping build that program kind of from the ground up. And now it's become bigger, better. It's more ingrained into 1871's programming, and it's helping even more women. And it's just so nice to have been a part of that story, because, helping women is kind of what we're all about, right? So I would count those two as probably some great successes, actually.
I would definitely agree with you on both of those fronts. I remember when I actually attempted to apply for the WISDEM program, and I got the whole way through the application. I think the last question was, what is your tech thing? And I was like,
yeah.
And that's when I was like, and we're done.
And we're done.
And
even though technically all businesses have a tech part now, right?
They do, right? So I joke and say, well, I trade online, and I have a newsletter that goes out via email. That's a technology.
100%. Yep.
So, but to your point, I mean, I have delved a little bit lately into the crypto and digital assets. So that's definitely a technology component.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep. So cool. All right.
Yep.
So switching gears then, obviously you probably felt that you've encountered some obstacles or maybe some lessons learned along the way that you'd want to share with our audience.
Yeah. I think one thing that comes to mind is this whole idea of imposter syndrome, which I hear a lot about. And what I would like to say about that is that I feel it all the time. I don't know that it ever goes away. Okay. Maybe it does for some people, but I have realized that I can move forward despite it, right? Like sometimes I'll be asked to speak, or, Mel will call me up and say, hey, I want to feature you on this women in tech and their money stories. And I'm like, do I have a money story?
Well,
Should she be talking to me? I don't know. Does that make sense? Mel's questioning her decision right now. No,
not at all. Not at all. Not even.
Yeah, but you know how sometimes you get the little voice, right? Like, who do you think you are? And I feel like a lot of women, especially in tech and in this space, deal with imposter syndrome quite a bit. And what I'd like you to remember is that if you were really an imposter, you'd never question whether you were an imposter, because real imposters don't do that. And that it's important for you to move forward despite feeling the imposter syndrome, because we need you. We need to hear your stories. We need to see your experiences and just know that there are other people out there like us. And that's really what it's all about, having that visibility, letting other women know that, hey, maybe I didn't start out in the best circumstances, but this is what I've done. And just sharing those experiences are so important. So just keep that in mind in terms of lessons learned. It's something I struggle with a lot. But I still just try to remember that there's somebody out there who might need to hear this. And so I'm still going to move forward despite it. The other thing in terms of lessons learned, we got to take care of ourselves. Oh my gosh. Like self-care. I'm juggling, right? Self-care. I'm juggling side hustle, day job, caregiving. And I have to kind of live in there somewhere and have a life. And it's just hard, right? And so I just want you to keep in mind that it's important to prioritize taking care of yourself. It's not a bad thing. And it doesn't have to be these big like trips or massages or these long bath soaks, which, I mean, all of those are fine, but like it could be taking yourself to the doctor, ordering groceries online. It could be the little things, right? Like check in with yourself and see what you need, and just make sure that you're making time for those things. I know that for me, if I don't get at least 6 hours of sleep a night, like everything else kind of goes downhill from there. Like that is my self-care baseline, right? Like I must sleep. And then if I sleep, we're great. And then I have other things that I like to do just during the week to just kind of help me feel centered, like reading at night, right? And going to dance once a week. Like those are not big things, maybe an hour a couple nights a week, right? Like see if there's ways that you can fit self-care into your schedule because it's really important. And if you don't take the time, unfortunately, our bodies will take it from us. It's why we get sick. It's why we have issues with blood pressure and things like that. So those, I would say, self-care, and don't listen to the imposter in your head. Yeah.
I think those are really, those are great tips. Those are fantastic.
Thank you.
What do you like to read?
It depends. So right now I'm reading, I guess it's called considered fantasy. It's a retelling of the Beauty and the Beast fairy tale.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually pretty good. I think it's a trilogy, but I tend to go back and forth. So I like to do a lot of fantasy. I love psychological thrillers. I also love Lifetime movies. So maybe there's something there, but it's also like, oh my God, that person is a little nuts, right? But they capture my attention. And most of the time I'm just trying to get out of the world for a little bit. Like it's my escape.
I can appreciate that. I'm a big reader too. And I'm definitely the murder mystery and the beach reads, the things where you just don't even have to remember what the book was about.
Exactly.
But it lets you just get out of the real world for a moment.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Are you still able to do dancing right now with, with everything that's gone down with the pandemic? Are you back into taking classes and doing performances?
I am. Well, no performances, but I do get to go to class once a week. We just keep our masks on the whole time, which is great. So I've learned how to dance in a mask. It's an experience. Folks.
I can imagine.
It's an experience.
Well, and I would have to think it's an opportunity to get like fancy with your mask.
I guess, but mostly I'm just like, can I breathe in this thing?
Right.
Yes, good, right? Like,
I love that. I love that.
Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to take the mask off. So drinking water is good opportunities to breathe.
All right, so let's switch gears a little bit. I think this is going to kind of go back to my first question and really what you're most focused on, which is the side hustle. Talking about where we are today and the great resignation and how people are like not putting up with crap anymore in corporate or, that old workforce scenario.
Sure.
I would have to think we're seeing more and more people. I mean, I read it on the Google News all the time that we're seeing more and more people are like, I made $60,000 last year with my side hustle.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Any money tips that you might have for somebody who is considering going down that path? Maybe when to make the decision to cut off full-time corporate and transitioning. I mean, I would think there's some sort of some steps or things that happen along the line where you're like, okay, now I'm ready to like say this is a real thing. I can, survive off of that income versus, an employer.
Yeah. So, first I want to say that I don't think that all side hustles need to become full-time businesses. I am of the belief that you get to decide what works best for you and your lifestyle. So if you don't want to take your side hustle full time, don't feel pressure to do that. And if you feel pressure to do that, come talk to me because I will not pressure you. But I would say if you are doing the side hustle thing and you are thinking about taking it full time, you really want to get clear on like your risk tolerance, right? Like, what do you feel comfortable with in terms of making that leap? For some people, it's having X number of months of basically expenses covered, right? Like I want to have 6 months of all my expenses covered or a 6-month emergency fund. Some people might look at it as I want to have this much money in recurring revenue for 3 months or something before I take the leap. Some people are like, I want to replace my salary and once I've done that, then I can, take the leap. So I would, the answer, I guess, is it depends, right? But really it's about figuring out what will make you feel more comfortable taking that leap and taking that risk. I am a very low risk tolerance. So I would probably want to have 6 months to a year of an emergency fund before I do it. But that doesn't mean that everyone is the same way. And some people have a lot more flexibility. with their financial situations and their risk tolerance. So I would think about those things if you are thinking about taking that leap.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that, because as a financial planner, one of the things that we say is that 6 months is really what you want to have in an emergency savings, regardless of what you're doing career-wise. And
Yes.
The fact that you bring that up really does speak to the reason to why we do that, right? So
For sure.
I can appreciate that. And I love that you also mentioned that it doesn't have to be your full-time thing.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think that it should also be something you're extremely passionate about.
For sure. For sure. I think, I used to think that when I first started my side hustle, the goal was to take it full time. Like that's what you do. Right. But I think it was by virtue of realizing that, there are things that I actually like about certain jobs, and sometimes I can actually fulfill my passions at work. Sometimes, you just realize that maybe taking the side hustle full time is just not what you need. Like a lot of people, I get that jobs are not stable, but they do offer a bit of stability for a time, right? So some people prefer to have benefits. They prefer to know that they're getting a paycheck every 2 weeks. They like having PTO, then that's okay, right? And so I think it's okay that if you want to keep it a side hustle, that's great. If you want to go full time, I think it's great. I think my goal is to help people realize that there's not just one way to be an entrepreneur, right? And so, and if you only spend 2 hours a week on it or 40 hours a week, you're still an entrepreneur. That doesn't make it any less of a real business. So ultimately, people get to decide what works best for them. I decided full-time entrepreneurship is not something I wanted to do. And hey, that may change in the future, but it's just not something I want to do right now. And that's okay, right? But there is pressure to take things full time. And I'm like, nope, I'm good.
Well, and you talked about a word it's kind of near and dear to my heart, and that's risk, right?
Yes.
Being an entrepreneur isn't for everybody. And it's
not
hard.
It's hard.
Real hard.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've even seen a few of my clients in the last couple of years try to go down that path and quickly realized after they've, gone through all of their resources, if you will.
Sure.
That's just not a lifestyle that they can sustain. And it's just not for everybody.
Agreed.
But I love that you're offering an alternative to that, which is not one or the other, but
hey, it's like why not both?
Combination of both, right?
Yeah.
And to your point, I mean, you can also have multiple.
100%. Mm-hmm.
As long as you have, I've always said, have a diversified income stream.
Absolutely. Yes.
Especially as an entrepreneur, because there's going to be days where things just don't happen.
Exactly.
And you're going to need to pull funds from some other resource, right? So I think that's really good advice that you give. Really good advice.
Thank you. Yeah. I think so too.
Awesome. Well, Jessica, tell us where we can find you. I know you mentioned that you have the newsletter.
Yeah.
Do we want to find you on LinkedIn? What's the best way if somebody wanted to get in touch and learn a little bit more about your newsletter? Maybe they're thinking about starting a side hustle, or maybe they're already halfway into one and now they're like, oh, what do we do? Type of thing.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Tech Biz Gurl pretty much everywhere online. That's girl with a U because I want it to be a little different. So techbizgurl.com. My LinkedIn, I'm Jessica Laverne Williams, but we'll have some links for you as well. But yeah, reach out. Whichever way works, I'm available. I also have a contact form on my site, so if that's easier, we can do that too.
I like that. Well, I know you're a very busy gal. Thank you for taking the time to be with me today and to share your thoughts. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, I look forward to promoting your story and seeing where 2022 takes us this year. Happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day. Thanks, Mel.